make it low down here, and other times I make it excited up here. So in this range, Daniel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how you talk. Yep. Nothing unnatural about that.
I still don't like that this Pixel 3 XL has a bit of a slope to it. It is not. It's just
you've got drinks falling off that thing left and right.
It's not a good coaster. My new phone is going to be a great coaster.
Is it? It's just a perfectly flat slab.
It's going to be bigger too. Actually, it's going to be smaller technically.
Is it?
Well,
screen size versus physical size.
It's going to be a millimeter or two more narrow, which is the important dimension for coaster use. But then it's going to be like 2 millimeters taller, which is not ideal for pocket use.
Reasonable.
But we're not talking about pocket use. We're talking about coaster use.
So since this isn't a tech podcast, but we still seem to talk about phones all the time, I think we should.
It's because video cameras, Daniel.
We should use this pre-show to get it all out now. I've got 2 questions for you. One is, I have that Nomad leather back thing on mine, and I'm curious if that's like, are you going to go with that type of case, or are you getting a regular case?
Daniel, this is almost a show topic. I just wrote cases as the third item in the show list.
Oh man, I didn't even see that.
But I know that we talk about phones probably too much, or tech stuff. But Daniel, the Razer flip phone, you can, when you fold it into an L configuration, you can hold it like a camcorder. Like if you open up the camera, fold it into an L, and then hold it with like your elbow down and like up, you look at the screen like it's a camcorder screen.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a mode.
Like it's supposed to do that.
Yes. It's like in the advertisement.
Ultimate dad phone.
It's pretty slick.
It's pretty cool.
Oh boy. I wonder how the back of those is as a coaster.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably have to like fully open or fully close it, but maybe.
Did
you see that trifold phone from Huawei?
Yeah, I did.
Did you see the price on that thing?
Like what, $2,700?
I think $28 maybe. Yeah.
It was
Can you imagine?
Super slick.
It's like, do you want an XH2S or do you want a cell phone?
I mean, if they can both shoot good video.
That's true.
It'd be hard to pick.
Yeah. I mean, what if you could make calls on your XH2S?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's like you're buying an iPad and a phone or a tablet, and so, it's just fair. Two with the price of one.
Yeah, that's fair. You're really not going to answer this case thing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, right. I don't know. Okay, fine. We can get into it. I want a Peak Design case for the Peak Designness of the attachment situation. As everyone's very familiar, I'm now an avid cyclist. As a seasoned triathlete, cycling is a big part of my life now. And the phone mounts for cycling with the Peak Design case work pretty well from what I understand.
Oh, okay.
Very secure.
I was going to challenge your thinking there, but I think that makes sense on a bike.
I have in past hit a bump and lost my phone. Actually, I've dropped my phone.
I remember that
twice.
I remember at least one of the times that happened.
Yeah, and somebody found it or gave it to a police officer, and they just showed up at my house with it, and I was like, "How do you know where I live?" It was very weird. Anyway, so I'm since then I don't mount my phone. I don't mount my phone to my bike.
Yeah, and we know how that turned out.
Well, that was a running situation.
If you say so.
Anyway. But maybe I would want to. And so Peak Design cases seem appealing to me.
Sure.
They don't offer the mustard yellow for the new 16s.
It was such a cool color.
Such a good color. Now it's this stupid magenta or foolish green. I don't want either of those colors. So that's kind of off the table. I am obsessed with the leather back from Nomad that you use on your phone. And so I'm thinking that's probably the route that I go. But also, Moment has their cases, and they have this new snap-on ND variable ND filter that's a little square snap-on.
It's almost the thing we want. It's not because what we've talked about in the past that we think would be really cool is a little slider thing on the back of the phone where it stays on the phone the whole time, but you can slide it ND in front of the lens when you need it. And this isn't quite that because it's still a separate thing that you would remove and have to put in your pocket or something.
Right.
They came so close though because it slides onto the back of the phone, on the back of the case. They could have just put an extra set of those rails elsewhere on the case.
Yeah, I mean that would totally work.
So you could store it on there.
Yeah,
that would have been pretty cool. But
I think that it goes down to 0.5 ND or something like that, or it's a 1 to 7, or is it a 2 to 7?
Yeah, maybe it's 2 to 7.
It may be slow enough you could just leave it on there.
That's true. Yeah. except for like nighttime use.
Sure. So I thought that was cool, but also they have like the $25 67 millimeter adapter for an ND. And since I'm a big video guy with my phone,
you really are
pretty huge video.
I'd be curious to see if you end up using that, because I have the Polar Pro case for mine, and I have the 67 millimeter ND adapter for that case, and I have 67 millimeter ND filters because that's what a lot of the Fuji stuff uses, and I don't think I've used it once.
If I'm going to plan to shoot video, I'm not shooting it with my phone.
Yeah. That's the problem. Like,
well, like the video on the new iPhones is so good, and being able, okay, Daniel, I'm so excited because I'm going to get the 16 Pro because I have to get a new phone because my phone died. And I'm going to take Apple Log and I'm going to use it to like do a color space transform from that to F-Log. And then I'm going to use the Fujifilm F-Log to Eterna LUT. And I'm going to make a LUT that converts Apple Log to Eterna, and I'm going to load that into the Blackmagic app, and I'm going to set the shortcut on my home screen to go to the Blackmagic app for video, and I'm going to shoot video in Eterna on my phone.
It's a lot of steps, but we'll see.
I'm just going to shoot tons of video in Eterna.
I could see you doing that, but I don't know. I'm curious if it'll actually work out.
Day one. So fast. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about shooting more video. I mean, they've added so many video features in the last 4 years. So I'm hoping that like after the newness wears off that I still use it for that. But even still, it's going to be for like me video, not for like project video.
Yeah.
Except for like on occasion here and there. And for that reason, it's like, am I really going to slap an ND on this thing? Maybe, but
I don't know. It's nice to have the option. I mean,
it has to be easy.
If you have the phone, I feel like it makes sense to get a case that lets you add one just in case you need it.
Sure. So. Yeah, I agree with that. So right now I'm leaning on like probably getting a Moment case and a leather back, but for now I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm waiting to order the phone before I order a case, just in case like I order the phone, they go, sorry, you can't have one.
So where we are, those orders are at 7 a.m. You gonna have to wake up for that, or are you usually up at that time?
It is so close, Daniel. I'm probably not even gonna sleep.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
I don't know, Daniel. I'm a little fidgetier than you. And I feel like I would push the case off. Like I'm having trouble not doing it right now.
Maybe it's just because it's new and you haven't used it much. Maybe not. I mean, the biggest downside of that thing is it doesn't protect the screen at all.
Yeah, but that's got that ceramic shield.
Yeah.
And Apple Care.
I mean, I like it because it's the, like, width-wise, it's the thinnest possible case you can get.
It seems pretty good.
And I feel like, whereas with regular cases, it notably increases the bulk, that one doesn't, and I like that.
One step up from a D-brand skin.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, because it does protect you from like a backdrop.
You have the always on screen on, and I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know. Works for me.
That's fine. But how do you turn it off? Like sometimes you go to click the button to turn it off and it doesn't turn off.
Is that true? Does that happen?
Yeah, I just press the button. It shouldn't turn off.
Yeah, I don't know. It pretty much does. Like it'll eventually fade out, and then it's fine.
Pretty much. It pretty much turns off. It mostly turns off.
Yeah. Why would I want to turn my phone off? I need to know when I get these messages.
I pre-ordered, I think, my Pixel 4 XL. I think that's the only phone I've ever pre-ordered.
That kind of surprises me because you're pretty into phones.
It's true.
But I guess you've typically bought them as a response to your previous one breaking.
That is actually true. Yeah. No, usually it's till they break. It's just phones break. It seems earlier than advertised for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem that way.
Anyway, we should talk about camera stuff.
Yeah, probably so.
So so there was a lot of stuff that's been coming out. Like, there was the Apple event.
Wild right now.
And we haven't really talked about the iPhones. I think we did like a whole episode on it last year where they released all those video features. There's like barely enough to talk about, but I'm probably going to get my new phone at some point in the next like 6 weeks, and then I'm going to want to talk about it. So
we'll wait till then.
We'll just push that out. No one really cares about it anyways, I assume.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Lol. But beyond that, Canon released a C80. There was the DJI Neo, the GoPro 13. What am I missing?
Well, I've seen some lenses too, but in terms of cameras, that's
true. There was that new
one?
50 millimeter lens. I think Leica announced a new 24 to 70. That's just a copy of a Sigma.
Canon released a new 28 to 105. I think
They did?
It's $1,100 and it's an RF lens, so it's like one of the
Like
most,
a copy of the Sigma, like a 2.8.
I think it might be. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, all kinds of weird stuff happening.
Yeah. So we're not going to talk about any of that, are we?
No.
Okay.
Why would we do that?
Just making sure that we're not going to be topical.
And we're also not going to talk about those S1H Mark II rumors that I found.
Okay, no, we actually are going to talk about that right now, Daniel. I read those rumors.
There's no way, right? There's just no way.
It's like,
it's too good. It's too powerful.
Like 8K 240 or something stupid. No, it was a 6K sensor, but it was like 4K 120 or 4K 240.
At like 1080 was 480 frames per second. No, that's not happening.
Definitely said that.
Yep.
It said it was going to support Aerilog C3, which I do believe.
I think that'll happen because the GH7 does.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Which I support you shooting in Aerilog C3 if you get a Panasonic camera. You could also shoot in Vlog. Vlog's pretty good. I feel like I've gotten to the point where I can color match those cameras just fine.
Yeah.
Barring the Lumix is just like super saturated.
Mm-hmm.
There was another. What was the other thing? It was. I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
You don't have the rumors in front of you, Daniel?
No.
I thought you would have memorized them by now.
Well, I just don't know which one stood out to you.
There's something like it was like a dual fan that was going to be able to record forever.
Yeah. I think it's two cooling fans, which I'm sure that's going to be totally silent and not a problem.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think those rumors are correct. I hope the camera happens at some point.
It feels like we're still until May of next year for that camera.
It kind of does.
Like it's not coming anytime soon.
People track when cameras are like registered or whatever, and I mean the rumor does suggest that some sort of camera has been registered and should come out in the next few months, but I don't know. It's just, who knows? It feels like it's a total toss-up whether that could happen. They did, however, actually, for real, announce 2 L-mount box cameras.
What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just totally didn't mention that to you before, but...
We'll mention it now, dang it.
Well, there's nothing interesting about them. So there's some sort of they're made for, live streaming or broadcast or, sure, that sort of use case. And they honestly don't really seem that notable. I think they're using the same sensor one of them's micro four thirds, the other's full frame.
Okay.
But I think they're using the sensor from the BS1H and the BGH1, which are their 2 existing box cams.
Super old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They are both L mount. They just don't seem like they're for the types of things we typically talk about. I think they're for live streaming.
Okay.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
Fine.
But they're doing stuff.
They're doing it. Just stuff. The thing that I was going to mention was that the rumors 17 stops of Aerilog C3.
Oh yeah.
And I read that and I go, but it's not going to shoot 17 stops. It's going to be 14 stops because it's only going to be a 16-bit sensor at most, and it's going to have 12-bit readout and video. What are they?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those spec lists, Daniel, they just really, really tease you.
I would say most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Especially Canon and their, this has 16 stops of dynamic range. It's does it? Does it really?
Yeah.
Sure, the sensor could read off at 16-bit, but not in the mode that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. They're guessing at, I think it is triple native ISO.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which the only one we've seen with that, at least recently, is the C400 and now the C80.
Yeah. So it's possible.
It's possible. It would be cool. I think that middle of the road ISO is helpful whenever I guess this isn't dual gain. It's not triple gain. It's triple native. That is slightly different, but even still, with the dual native ISOs, it is nice to have that middle of the road because sometimes you get to 6400 and it's garbage and you have to jump up another stop and then you have too much light.
Yeah, yeah. The more the better, right?
What if all of this was true? It's saying that the EVF is 9.44 million dots. People are just making stuff up at this point.
The part that's hard to believe is probably the 6K sensor, because I feel like I've heard Panasonic talking about 8K video, but one thing I could see happening is, kind of going the Sony approach, like Sony did with the A7S III, where, it's the lower megapixel sensor for the video oriented camera. And then if you really care about high megapixels, there's a different camera for you. And so I could see them doing an S1R Mark II or even just an S1 Mark II and having that be some ultra high megapixel thing, and maybe that would be able to shoot, 8K video, 30 frames per second or something. So I could kind of see it, and maybe they're going lower megapixel to get faster readout. It
would be like the Fuji approach, where they have the X-H2S, which is their fast camera at 6K, and then they have the X-H2, which is their 8K camera, which is more for photos, a little slower, but it can shoot you your 8K video if you need it.
And I could see that, and I'd be okay with that, honestly.
This rumor is it's 120 frames per second, full frame, open gate.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can do that off of without having a global shutter.
I don't know.
It's too fast. It's too fast.
It's just too powerful. It's too good.
I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. If that happens, I'm going to eat my words.
I mean, we can do 4K 120, right? So 6K is not that many more pixels.
It's just the rest of them, right?
Yeah, it's just the rest of them. I don't know.
Maybe it reads it real slow. Maybe it's like 6K 120, but it's at like a 23 millisecond readout speed.
Maybe.
It's just real slow.
Yeah.
So much rolling shutter. Really slow rolling shutter.
Well, we'll see, I guess.
Okay, anyways.
So now that we're not talking about any of that.
Yeah. I got a new camera.
You did. Finally paid for it and everything.
Yep. And you just all it took was for you to trick me into borrowing it for a while, and then you've been like, "Am I really going to take all of the accessories off of this and downgrade the firmware and rechange the settings back because they were all wrong in the first place?"
Slow down. What do you mean take all the accessories off of it? What did you do? What have you done?
Don't worry about it, Daniel. I put the eyelets on it.
Oh
for
man,
designs.
that's like moving in. You're committed.
I put my red screw in button, my software press, and I had put the plate for the bottom from my Big Design capture clip.
Oh man, yeah, you did kind of make that your home, didn't you?
I got accessories, Daniel. I like accessorizing. I put a hot shoe cover on it.
Nice.
Because it was just bare naked.
Yeah. I don't think it came with one, actually.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it has one on there now.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad it is going to a good home.
Yeah. I shot with it this last weekend too.
Oh, nice. I was going to ask if you had used it anymore.
Just to be clear, this is the XT5, which is now in my possession, no longer in Daniel's possession because he wasn't appreciating it enough.
Yep. That's right.
Well, now I will appreciate it appropriately. It's got my 23 1.4 on it, which doesn't resolve to 40 megapixels, and I don't care.
Yeah, you just don't even care at all.
Don't even care.
It's got so much character. That's all you need.
It's like, you know it. It was nothing exciting. It was like family dinner weekend or whatever, and so I brought my camera. Your camera, now my camera. And shot some photos.
Nice.
I haven't even looked at them, Daniel.
You might just delete them. Might not ever look at them.
Format the card.
Yeah.
It's more about the experience for me, Daniel. It's more about the act of photography.
Yeah. It's about doing photography.
Yeah. I just want to do it. I don't want to have to deal with the pictures afterwards.
Oh, man.
Woof. I think I shot it all in JPEG too.
Oh man. Big step for you. But you did update the firmware, so you probably shot it in real Ace.
I updated the firmware with my iPad while there.
Nice.
I was like, what am I doing? I want to shoot with real Ace. Just download it.
It is nice that you don't need a computer to do that.
It was just that easy, Daniel.
Yeah.
I have the SD card reader. I just did it. What is a computer?
What is a computer?
Anyway, so last week we talked about lenses.
Yes.
And I kind of glazed over the Tamron rumors of this 28 to 300 f4 to f7.1. We kind of touched on it, but more in context of the Sigma 28 to 105 2.8.
Yeah.
And I had a few questions related to the conversation on this Tamron rumor, which that lens still hasn't come out to my knowledge, but it's still rumored to come out, which is probably going to be for Z and for E mount whenever it does. And it's just a super zoom, but it's a 20 to 300. They haven't come out with it. They have a DSLR version, but they don't have a mirrorless version. I had a few questions for you on super zooms. And so I did not want to let it go. We're going to bring this topic back and I'm going to ask you these questions. As you know, I'm a big super zoom guy.
Yeah. All those super zoom lenses you own.
That's true. I don't own a single super zoom.
Although you own so many lenses.
I strongly consider getting that 18 to 300 for our Europe trip.
Yeah.
I thought about if I got that, can you put that lens on a teleconverter? Who knows?
Probably not. They're pretty limited on those.
That's true. That'd be cool though. You can do 18 at 2x. That'd be weird.
It would.
Anyway, what's your ideal super zoom focal length,
Man,
Daniel?
I don't know if I have one. I mean, super zooms don't really seem like my thing. And
when is it a super zoom? Is it 24 to 200 a super zoom?
Yes.
Is a 24 to 120 a super zoom? What if it's constant aperture? If it's f4 24 to 120, is it a super zoom?
I don't think so. That feels under the threshold.
That's
to me.
5x. Yeah, 5x.
To me, I mean, I don't know if there's like an official, definition or something, but to me, it's like if you can multiply the focal length on the wide end by 10 and get, like close, somewhere in that, range on the tele end, and that's what I think of. Like, so
a 24 to 200, a 24 to 240,
those types of things. But like even your beloved that you never use 35 to 150, like I don't even know if I don't think I would call that a super zoom. It doesn't. It's a zoom, but it's kind of like on the long end of what I'd consider regular. Because when I think about like the Canon 24 to 105, very classic lens, that doesn't feel like a super zoom to me.
Okay, what about like a no, because that wouldn't even work either. Because like a 150 to 600 is still only 5x.
Yeah, and the other part of it is, it's like a super zoom lens has to be something that's kind of useful in a wide range of situations, and 150 on the wide end is still like basically a telephoto.
So it has to go from wide to normal to telephoto.
Yeah, I think so.
Does it have to start at ultra wide?
No, because like the 28 to 300 I would call a super zoom, and 28 is not ultra wide.
So if you had to pick, and like these are all going to be like, I feel like the other requirements, it has to be variable aperture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know of any super zooms that aren't. So like that's just the compromise you have to make.
I think so.
What would you want, Daniel?
I mean, this range, this 28 to 300 on this Tamron lens, I think is if you're going to deal with this type of lens with all of its trade-offs, I think that's pretty good, because you get a pretty wide. Wide is not a good term to use. You get a pretty good variety of focal lengths. I mean, I want it to punch in as much as it can punch in, right? Like, I think I want it to be able to go to something like 300 or 280 or somewhere in that range. Because again, if I'm dealing with a terrible maximum aperture, I better be getting something for that, and that's one of the things you can get.
On APS-C cameras, you can get like an 18 to 300. My Tamron has an 18 to 300, which is the equivalent of like 27 to like 450.
That's pretty good. I can see cases where it makes sense. I mean, like you said, you're going on trip, you just want to take one lens. I mean, the downside to it is that one lens is going to be pretty big, but I mean, I can see how that's good.
Well, I was going to say, Daniel, is that I think that that super zooms are better on APS-C. That was the argument that I was going to make. Was that
what makes you say that?
Well, because the range is wider and it's smaller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
the lens is
18 to 300
smaller.
is about the size of a 17 to 70.
Yeah.
Like for real, it's about the size of 17 to 70. I'm probably totally wrong about that. I mean, it zooms out a lot.
Yeah.
But like you have a bigger range. I mean, sure, it's the equivalent of like f4.5 to God knows what, 7.1.
If you're going to be taking most of your pictures outside in the sun, if it's that kind of trip, then I mean, the aperture is probably not going to be a huge problem, and having the ability to zoom way in is going to give you something that you're definitely not going to get from your phone. And so I can see a use case for them. It's never been enough for me to want to buy one.
How fast does a super zoom have to be?
I mean, I think it's slow as possible.
As slow as possible. You're like, I don't want it to be fast.
If there's not a 7.1 in that range somewhere, then what are you? It's not a super zoom.
I mean, do you think that there's room? Like, there's rumor of like a f4 version of this 20 to 300. Mm-hmm. It sounds like it would be the heaviest lens of all time.
It does. If there was some magical way that it was not extremely heavy, then sure, I think it'd be great.
Okay, so you had an f4 24 to 300 full frame lens. At what point is that too heavy to carry around?
It doesn't take much, honestly. I mean, if it's a 2-pound lens, you're going to feel that for sure, right? Like I mean, I don't know what these lenses weigh, but a pound, 1.3 pounds, something like that is, it's at least manageable. But you get over that 2-pound mark, that's what I think of as a really heavy lens.
So you're saying that a half a Noct, basically, like you're not even going to go up to like the full weight of a Nikon Noct.
No, definitely not. I mean, if you've ever used like a Canon 70 to 200 f2.8, full frame, that's a big lens, and I don't remember exactly how much it weighs, but like a lens like that is heavy enough that I don't want to carry it around for fun. Like I'm using that to do work, and it's not going to be, oh, I'm going on a trip, let me take this lens.
Man, the 24-200 f4 to f6.3 from Nikon is only 1.25 pounds.
Yeah, see, I mean, that's, to me, that feels like it's kind of on the limit, but that's reasonable.
I'm looking up how heavy the Canon 28-70 f2 is. Do you think it weighs more or less than a Noct?
It weighs less than a Noct, I'm sure, but I bet it weighs more than that lens you just told us about.
These specifications are in the wrong units. I can't tell you how much it weighs. All I know is it weighs 1,430 grams.
Oh, yeah, that's like 2.2 pounds ish.
Okay, so you carry that around?
No, it's too heavy.
It's got to be sub 2 pounds.
Yeah, 2 pounds is 2 pounds is my limit.
Daniel, you're a ninny. I didn't mean. I take it back. I'm sorry. I didn't mean.
Because that's just the lens. You have the camera. The camera's potentially another pound. And then you're at 3 pounds for your camera thing that you're carrying around. No, thank you.
So if they can give you an F4 version and it's sub 1.5 pounds, you're in.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's all my questions. I thought there was more questions in this here because I have like 17 bullets, but it's me mostly listening to other super zooms.
Yep.
So I think for me, like, I want my super zoom to be like, if I can get f3.5 on the wide end, I'm good. If it goes to 5.6, I'm super good. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm just not a super zoom guy yet.
Yeah.
It's my future. We both know it. I think that I want that 24, but I would probably give up those 4 millimeters to get the 100 millimeters on the far end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll see what happens. Like, on one hand, you would think physics dictates that there's a limit to what's possible, but we've been seeing more and more there's lenses that the physics don't really work and they make up for it in software. And so maybe we'll see some more advancements and all this stuff, and maybe they'll get lighter and better aperture and all that. We'll see.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, to a point you're fighting physics, but I don't know. These are super versatile, and a lot of people, it's their only lens.
Yeah.
Specifically my father. And, they're good. Mm-hmm. The 18-300 is only like 640 grams, Daniel.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I think you should get one. I don't know what you use it for, but I think you should get one. I want you to get it, and I want you to put it on the XT30.
Uh-huh. That'd be great.
It would be so good.
XT30 with 300 millimeters of reach.
Mm-hmm. So much reach, Daniel.
No, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Did you see about all okay, not rumors, but did you see that Red reduced the price of their cameras?
I did, yeah. The Komodo and the Komodo X by quite a bit, right?
By quite a bit. So, like, the Komodo was released in 2020. So, like, it's fairly old, but the Komodo X came out last year, I think, and they reduced the price by like $3,000. It's a significant price drop. And the result of like this has brought commotion into the photography community.
Mm-hmm. Komodo-shin.
Yeah, nope, yep, let's go with that. Komodo-shin. Mm-hmm.
Don't try to spell that out.
What's going on here, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder, right? Like, one thought anytime you see a price drop is, does that mean something new is coming out?
Does it?
I mean, it's possible. The other theory is that Nikon bought Red and has infused a bunch of money, and let's sell some cameras. Let's lower our profit margin on this one product, get people in the door. Could be that too.
So are they? It's either they're clearing inventory, or they're trying to move people into the Red market.
Yeah. I could see either, because I feel like the Komodo is like the Red gateway drug, where it's low enough price that maybe you get that and then you buy all the accessories, and then you have all the accessories and you know how to use the Red color workflow, and you like the colors and you have lenses that work with it. And then before you know it, you're buying in a more expensive Red camera. So it could be that.
There has been rumors that Nikon would merge their lines in such a way of like, maybe we bring some Red technology into a Nikon camera or vice versa.
Right.
I mean, is it possible that they're gearing up to release a Nikon cinema camera at this price point?
I would love to see a Nikon version of like the C80. Like, it'd be so exciting to see basically another entrant into that segment.
But it'd be the same entrant. It's just Red, but under a different name.
Well, but I mean, think about it. Like the things.
Or do you mean like a C80, not like a box camera?
No, I mean like a C80. Like you put C400 or C80 competition.
Like a mirrorless camera on steroids.
Exactly. I would love to see Nikon make something like that, where it has the cinema chops of something like a Komodo, but you don't need $5,000 of accessories to use it.
That would be pretty slick.
Yeah.
Be pretty cool.
It would at least be a cool competition to have. And Canon's really the only one playing in that particular space right now. And yes, you've got Sony with the FX3, Canon with the C80. I mean, I don't know. I just think it'd be a cool place for Nikon to play.
Yeah, like right in that range. We're looking at the C70, the C80, the C400, and the FX3, the FX6, the FX9 is starting to get to the top of that range. You're kind of
looking at like under 10K.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the FX6 has been rumored to be replaced pretty soon, probably within the next year. And the new FX6 is likely to be really cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting rumors swirling around that camera. But I kind of was thinking that maybe what they're doing here is they're trying to just compete with Canon, as always.
Yeah, it could be. Could be.
Canon is doing a lot with the release of the C400. That's a very cool camera in this category. It's not like, I feel like Red is more of a cinema camera. Like it's gearing you up more towards like, let me make a movie or something.
Yeah.
But for all of your documentaries and your commercials and TV shows, like the live stuff, the C400 is the perfect fit for a lot of applications. And they're just now releasing the C80, which is this huge step up from the C70. It's likely a little more expensive, but it's one better.
Yeah.
Well, it's 10 better.
Yeah.
It goes from 70 to 80. And it's like, what can we do to compete and like, keep Red viable while Canon's releasing all these cameras? Well, let's drop the price.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a good chance that's what it is, but I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, I haven't seen any rumors around Nikon releasing a cinema camera, but this does kind of make you wonder.
It is now $1,000 cheaper than a C400.
Because the C400 is what, like $8,000?
It's $8,000.
Yeah. So you're saying the Komodo X is cheaper,
right? It's $1,000 cheaper, but with the C400, you get the monitor, and the handle, and like everything that you need to shoot. Like you can buy a C400 and go shoot.
Yeah. That's a huge difference in my mind. Like if I was going to buy one of these cameras, I would be looking at the C400 over the Komodo X just because I feel like you can really get nickel and dimed on those accessories.
You're going to have to spend $1,500 on a DMC monitor.
Exactly. Yep.
And a handle.
The non-X, the regular Komodo, I want to say is around $5,000 maybe.
That sounds right.
So, it's a little bit cheaper, but still, you still have the same issue with needing to buy a bunch of accessories.
I still want one of those just to have it. If it was like $3,000, I would still not buy it.
Someday they will be. If you wanted to put one on your shelf, someday you'd be able to.
Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just wait until I can find a broken one on eBay for less than $1,000, and then I'll put it on my shelf.
There you go.
It doesn't feel shelf worthy though, Daniel. Like I want one, and it would look cool on a shelf, or get one of those like nano leaf boxes. But I mean, that's really reserved for like legendary cameras and lenses,
like Fuji's.
Sure. Yeah.
Rolly 35 AF.
That one's, there's more like pre-orders are still happening for the Rolly 35 right now. Boy, that's been tempting. And we're starting to get like some video. Like I think Kai, what's his name, posted a video about
Kai
it.
Wong.
Yep. I haven't watched that yet, but I'm so pumped.
Only on this show can we seamlessly transition from the red Komodo X to the Rolly 35.
Daniel, I'm so pumped about that camera.
I know you are.
I think that like, I'm not going to buy one. I'm just not going to buy one. I don't feel like spending the $700 on it, but I want one so bad.
All right. We spent too many episodes recently talking about that stuff.
No, we haven't, Daniel.
It's
just growing in excitement.
So along with the red thing, another thing I thought was interesting was Blackmagic released a couple of updates. This is hot news. I think this just came out today as we record this.
Daniel, I think that there's been enough times on this podcast where I've brought news to you. You're just dropping things on me left and right. I mean, like, what is happening right now?
It's wild. So one piece of news is they announced a monitor for the Pixis. So when the Pixis came out, it has a screen on the side, but it doesn't have a flippy screen. And they announced an EVF with it, but now they've announced an actual monitor that you can add onto it. It looks like a pretty good monitor. So it's 5 inches HDR, goes up to 1500 nit brightness. So you'd be able to, probably be able to see it reasonably well outside. But what's really cool is it has a touch screen and it has some buttons on it, so it can do camera control type things. I think it can,
excellent.
I think it can do basically everything the built-in screen can do. And it's
except for not be attached only to the side.
Right. And it's $300.
So, it's only $300?
Yeah. I mean, you buy a Pixis, The only thing that would hold me back is, then like we had talked before about maybe the Blackmagic Video Assist is a good monitor for this camera because it lets you record H.265.
Sure.
Whereas the camera can't.
Right.
But if you didn't care about that, for filming a movie or something, I would totally use this monitor. $300.
Yeah, that's great.
Great deal. So that's pretty cool. And then
I need them to release a software update to allow us to record to H.265.
I would really be interested in that camera if it could do that. And that's just workflow wise, that feels like such a deal breaker that it makes me not interested in it. That's a shame.
I'm going to go back and look to see like what's the smallest file sizes that you can get out of that thing. But it feels like it's just not worth it. It's like, I got the smallest Blackmagic RAW file size that I can get.
I don't care about the file size. It's the workflow. It's like I pull clips off. I don't want to have to develop the RAWs into, to use them.
Would it be, would it be that much different than working with log footage? Like you're bringing it in, you have to convert it, but you just have more flexibility. Like you can change the exposure and the white balance, and it's just like log on steroids.
I guess you do get you record proxies, right? So like if you want to film and then be able to edit quickly, you do get the proxies.
That's true.
So
I'd like to apologize for saying log on steroids. I feel like that was too far.
Think so?
Yeah, I'll just take it back.
Are you trying to talk me into getting a Pixis?
I'm not trying to talk you into getting Pixis. It does have L mount. It would go great with that S1H Mark II.
Might have to come back to this at some point.
The monitor was a big problem. Is it SDI at least?
I don't know how it attaches.
Or it has a USB.
I bet it's USB-C.
It's USB-C. Mm-hmm. It's almost certainly. Like you don't have to look it up. It's got to be USB-C.
Which I'm fine with that.
Well, yeah, sure.
That's kind of how they designed the camera. So. And it has to be USB-C because it does camera control.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's all. Like, wait, don't even look it up. It's not even worth it. They released the pricing for the Ursa Cine 17K.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
this is the one that they rumored was coming, right? Not the all no holds bar. We built the most expensive camera that we possibly could, and it was like $2,000.
So the same camera.
Or is this the one that they were like, we're building an even more K camera?
Yeah, that's what happened. So they announced both of these together. It's effectively the same camera, just with a different sensor. And so they announced this camera. They're like, we pulled out all the stops. And it was $15,000 was the price.
Was it a different sensor, or was it the same sensor twice?
No, it was a different sensor.
Okay.
So the other one's a 12K sensor.
Right.
And then this one, they announced it at the time. They said we have another one that's a 65 millimeter large format sensor. And
65 millimeter.
It's 17K is the resolution. And they said, we don't know yet what the pricing is going to be. It's going to come out later. And now they have the pricing.
Oh, man. Oh, wait. Did you not put it in here so I can guess it?
No, I put it in there.
Ah, dang it. Yeah. Daniel, you're doing it wrong.
I probably am.
This is why
I'm new at this news thing.
You're supposed to have your own secret show notes.
Yeah.
And then you reference the secret show notes.
Yep.
It's $30,000, whatever.
Yeah. Which is still like comically cheap compared to any other full frame large format.
What's the highest resolution cinema camera you can buy right now, right? Barring shooting on IMAX and scanning the film?
Yeah, I don't know if like is an Arri LF similar, maybe? I don't know.
No.
Well, sensor size it might be, but not resolution.
Yeah, it's sensor size, yes. Arri has like a 65 millimeter, but that it's 4K.
Yeah.
It's like 44, 48 across or something like that.
Even sensor-wise, this is going to be so much cheaper than that. And granted, it's
half the price.
It's Blackmagic, rather than Arri. So, like, obviously, I'm not saying they're equivalent, but, like, price-wise, classic Blackmagic, it's way cheaper than any other option.
Well, my expectation here is that you could just stroll over to B&H and buy one of these. If you want to buy an Arri camera, you have to like know a person.
Yeah.
You have to like call Germany.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, well, why don't you just fly on out and we'll talk about it?
Yeah. I think you're right. That does seem like how it works. Or that's like they'll rent one to you, but you can't actually buy it.
It's like buying a Ferrari. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, do you already have an Arri camera? You're like, no, I don't. They go,
Yep.
Maybe you should rent one. Think about that.
So we'll see. I think the jury is definitely still out on that camera in terms of whether people will take it seriously and use it for real work and all that. I certainly hope it's successful because I like Blackmagic a lot, and it's pretty competitive pricing.
I think that the Blackmagic RAW is good. They make good cameras, decent colors, all that stuff. I think where this thing is aimed to succeed is the resolution. And we talked about it whenever this thing came out. It was like, what are you using this for? And they're like, there's the Sphere, there's whatever the VR stuff, like the Apple Vision Pro and blah, blah, blah. There's enough things that are kind of in motion in the tech world that demand resolution.
Yeah.
And like,
sure.
like 65 millimeter 17K, if you split that across two eyes, now you're looking at 8K basically. So if you wanted like 8K resolution to two eyes, you could potentially like split the light and put it into one camera or whatever. I don't know if anyone's doing that, but I think that there's going to be applications where this level of resolution is needed. Maybe you're doing like aerial shots and you want to be able to have that much detail, that sort of thing. I don't think this is going to take the place of like an Airy or a Venice.
No, I don't think
so. Or
a
V Raptor or something like that. But I don't think that they're trying necessarily to. I think that they're providing another tool for people who need that much resolution.
Yeah. Which is great. Glad we have that option.
I'm glad that we have that option. Me and you. Yep.
I mean, for all you know, you just bought that XT5 from me, so I've got money to spend now.
Yep. We finally put you over the edge.
Yep.
You're gonna go out there.
Either that or a Pixis is going to be on this desk next week. We'll see which. Or a DJI Ronin 4D.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how you're going to decide between those three.
Yeah, they're so similar.
There's no way. Okay, Daniel, let's get to this main topic.
All right.
How much time do we have? Like 45 minutes left?
Yeah, I mean, sky's the limit.
Okay, great. Well, we got a listener question that asked us to go deep on like how we mount our cameras and physical mounts for cameras.
Oh man.
I didn't do any research, Daniel.
I didn't either.
I literally just brain dumped and I was like, let's rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that maybe we don't explicitly think about that much, but I mean, we've used a lot of things, so I think
I think about it all the time.
It's all you think about.
It's all I think about.
Well, how do you want to start?
So I made a subcategory of lists here of ways that you can mount camera, and I think most of this is really just for like video stuff, but also kind of for photo.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to like talk through some like the considerations and things for like how and why you might mount your camera to one of these things in each application. And then afterwards, kind of want to talk about like, what's your favorite?
Okay.
But mostly like, we're going to kind of probably land on, spoiler alert, these are all for different things. And there isn't like one gangbuster solution for all of it.
I mean, the answer is we use all of this stuff, right?
The answer is you should own all of these things. No, that's not the answer. Okay, let's start with the obvious one, which is tripods.
Okay.
What's the best tripod right now, Daniel?
Oh, man, that's a hard question to answer. I feel like we've, maybe more me than you, but both of us, I think, have kind of learned the hard way over time some of the ins and outs of tripods, especially for video.
Yep.
Where, you see something and it looks really good, and then you actually start using it and you realize the problems with it. One thing that I've really picked up on is if you're doing any kind of thing where you have to move the tripod from place to place for different setups, whether you're filming a video around your house or frequently setting up, interview shoots or whatever, you need to be able to easily raise and lower the height of the tripod because that's like, it just seems like so frequently you set up a shot and you say, I really wish the camera was 3 inches higher than it is. And if your tripod makes that difficult to do, it's a huge pain.
I feel like you're just dancing around the Edelchrome Tripod X.
I am not. It's a terrible idea.
On record, weighs nothing.
Don't even start. So I'll say the best and worst version of this I've had. So worst that I've seen is just a kind of a standard video tripod where you've got like the 3 locks on each leg. And, if you want to raise and lower it, you've got to undo all those latches and pick it up or lower it and then redo the latches. That's a pain. Best I've seen in that is something with a center column where you can loosen one thing and then just lift or lower the camera. The problem with the center column stuff is that it seems like a lot of times those have a pretty low weight limit. So if you have a rigged out camera or a cinema camera or something, you might have a hard time finding a center column tripod that can support it. And so the middle ground is something like the Free Blazer from Small Rig.
Small Rig Free Blazer.
Yeah. There's a couple of other things that do the same. There's some that are very expensive that do similar things, but they make tripods that have a single latch on each leg that you can loosen. And, you do that and then you can pick the whole thing up or down. And that seems like they have the weight capacity for a heavy camera, but they're a little bit easier to use than the ones that have three latches on each leg.
I think the easy trap to fall in with tripods is that for a lot of us, we don't want to own more than one tripod, but there is not one tripod that does all the things.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
It's like, depending upon what you're doing, maybe you need a center column. Maybe you need a bowl for the tripod so you can easily adjust the balance of the head. Maybe you need a fluid head. Maybe you need a travel head. Maybe you need a ball head. And like, how much weight does it have to hold? Do you need to be able to raise it and lower it easily? Is it lightweight? Is it heavyweight? And it's like all of these things you kind of have to pick. And it feels like, but there is a world where you could pan pick every little piece of your tripod. You go out there and you could pick the head, pick the bowl, pick the body, and like land on the perfect tripod for you. But it's all just so specific to the application.
Yep.
And I mean, the last tripod I bought was a Suri one, and I've been pretty happy with it. It's a ball head with a center column. It's a photography tripod primarily, and I use it for static video shots. I don't use it for like moving video work. And it's been basically fine. It has like a 20-pound weight limit, so I can bring out my camera and it'll hold it just fine. But I went through like 30 tripods trying to find one that mostly fit my needs.
You didn't
that was
buy
like
30 tripods, but you just shopped around.
Yeah, I did. And it was like so many things where I'm like, what about this one? What about this one? And it's like, do I go with carbon fiber? Do I need aluminum? And it took forever to land on something that was like the right price and the right tripod. There's so many different brands. And it's just like, it feels like sometimes it's impossible to find the right tripod.
I think you're spot on when you say that everybody wants to just own one, but it can be hard to just own one. And I feel like maybe for most people, a good compromise would be have one, heavy duty video tripod that has a fluid head on it. You can, really easy to like lock off and get a really stable platform.
Unless you don't shoot video.
But if you do, having something like that, and then also having a really lightweight tripod where if you need to take it on a trip with you, you can always use it as an auxiliary thing if you're, shooting with two cameras. But that's kind of the setup I have. You have something that's sort of in between, but I would say probably yours is more on the lighter side.
Yeah, I have more of a photo tripod. I think it folds down reasonably small that I'm okay with traveling with it here and there, but it's nowhere near like a Peak Design travel tripod.
Yeah.
Which I have like, man, it was so hard not to buy that tripod, but I've seen so much like feedback on that tripod of these people that super love it and then these people that super hate it. And it feels like the cycle of that one is either is like you super love it and then you fall out of love with it and eventually go to something else.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's, maybe I'm just misrepresenting it, but it's tough because it's like, it's so light that you have to hang your bag from it to weight it.
Yeah.
And like the feet can get weird and some people don't love the bowl and it's just.
I mean, that's one advantage to a heavy tripod. Like even if you're shooting video, even if you just have a standard mirrorless camera, you don't have a big rigged out setup, having a super lightweight tripod, I'm always nervous about it. Every time I put a camera on that, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to knock this thing over and, who knows what could happen. Whereas my heavier rig, where I have my 8-pound camera rig and the Small Rig Free Blazer tripod that's like pretty big, it just feels a lot more stable.
Yeah. I do think if I was a serious like landscape photographer or I did more hiking photography where I needed a tripod or I wanted to set up like a long exposure shot, I would absolutely buy a carbon fiber Peak Design tripod to go into my Peak Design backpack with my capture clip and my straps.
Oh my gosh. If the weight was important, then yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. It's like, it packs down the smallest. I mean, there are some other options out there, but that one's pretty proven.
Last thing I want to say on tripods is I'm really excited for that one that Potato Jet did with Small Rig.
That does seem pretty cool.
Because that's what I thought the Free Blazer was when they first announced it, where it's a single thing that you press and that unlatches everything. Like, that's what I thought.
Honestly, I thought this is what it was too. It was like one clutch and you can raise and lower the tripod.
Yeah. And seems like it's finally coming. I think the first pre-orders have sold out. The second batch is selling now and will ship in November.
Isn't it expensive?
It is expensive. It comes with a fluid head, so that's something to keep in mind. But with the fluid head, it's $800. So, I mean, you can spend way more than that on a tripod, but
that's spend way more of that on a fluid head.
But that's quite a bit of money for a tripod.
Yeah, it's a bit. But if it's the tool for the job.
Yeah. What about monopods?
Okay. I own at least 2 monopods, and there are latch monopods and there are twisty monopods, and latches are better than twisties. I will fight you over it.
I totally agree with that.
And I think the monopods are pretty cool when you pair them with a fluid head. If you're shooting video, that's just a lot of fun.
It kind of depends for me. I've seen people use them quite a bit, and I've used one once or twice. For me, I mean, you're obviously more mobile than you are with a tripod by a lot, but you're not fully mobile. And I've definitely run into times where, like, let's say I'm at a dance or something. Maybe the monopod seems good for being able to get like a locked off style video shot, or maybe you're trying to shoot slow shutter speed for some reason. I don't know. And it works great for that. But the problem is if you need to move to another position, all of a sudden you've got this big long stick you're carrying around with you, and that can be ungainly.
That has been my main issue with monopods, and despite owning 2, I've never been able to work it in. All the event stuff that we've shot, I just can't. Like, I'll try it for a little bit, and I'm like, this is in my way, and I'm just going to hold the camera and shoot like a normal person.
Yep. Which is a disappointing answer, but that is how it seems to
I
be.
have always wanted one of those like hydraulic foot ones where you can like press your foot on it and it has the hydraulic for like lift and lower.
That seems cool, but at the same time, when I talk about being frustrated with like the mobility, that part isn't my problem. Like, it's not that I can't raise and lower it. It's just that I'm dealing with this extra thing to carry around.
Yeah, I think that the promise of monopods is there, and for some people they are amazing and work really, really well for their workflow of, I need to do static shots, but not like so much that I set up a tripod and be able to do a static here, go over there, do a static there, go over there, do a static there. And if that's your workflow, I feel like a monopod could be for you. And it's just like, in no way has a monopod ever been for me. Yeah. And I own 2 of them.
Yep. Somehow they just happened to you.
Yeah, monopods just happened to me. If I can get one more, then I'll have a tripod. Your monopod is part of your tripod.
It is, yeah, which is a cool way to do it. My smaller tripod, it's a Benro. You can basically pull one of the legs off and turn it into a monopod. And that, I actually love that solution because I don't think I could justify buying a monopod separately, but if I can just have one when I want it, cool.
So, moving on from that, you own a Gimbo.
I do.
And I feel like I've used it equal amount to you.
That's probably true, although I've used it more lately, like the past couple of years, I guess. But you're talking about a gimbal. We happen to have a friend who calls them Gimbos, and we've picked up on it. But yes.
Too funny. Anyways, I have always wanted a gimbal. Like, I've wanted one so bad. I wanted to get one of those. Is it like the Giant ones that are like really small?
Yeah, I think so. They're affordable.
It's the Weeble that I wanted.
Yeah, that's made by Xiaoyun.
Like, so bad. So bad.
Well, and now DJI has the ones that can like automatically unlock the latches and stuff. And the gimbals have gotten pretty cool.
Gimbals are so stinking cool. And I feel like it's one of those gateway drug things, which is like, you start getting into cameras and you start getting into video and then you start watching too much YouTube. And then you're like, I need a gimbal.
I think everybody thinks they need a gimbal.
You know that, who was it? It was Middle Things launched this gimbal controller that you can attach to your Ronin or something. And it makes it so that you can use your gimbal as a PTZ type camera. You can have a pan tilt zoom. It's just like a little controller that you attach on there, and then you like plug in the USB or what have you. And
that's neat.
And you can like PTZ your gimbal.
That's cool.
Yeah. And like it works with like most DJI gimbals or something like that. And you just screw it in. It has an Ethernet port on it. It's very fun.
So what do you like, you kind of led into something interesting saying that it's a gateway drug.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I agree with you. But what's the actual experience been?
Okay. So using gimbals kind of sucks because they're heavy. And you can get really cool smooth footage, but it doesn't mean you can just like dance around. You still have to like ninja walk or whatever. And you still kind of have to be intentional with it. You have to like practice a lot to become one with the gimbal so that you can like control the joystick effectively and know how much inertia it's going to have as you like turn your body and like know how to use it and be able to you're wanting to get things on the move. And this is the problem that I always run into whenever I use your gimbal is because like I don't have a ton of practice with it. I've just used it a bunch. And I'm trying to get a lot of shots quickly, and I'm trying to think about focus and how to use this thing, and the subjects are moving quickly and I'm moving quickly, and it's like you can easily like lose control. Not like lose control of the gimbal, but more of like I did the wrong thing, or like I can't keep up, or it's just it adds this level of complexity that makes shooting things quickly difficult if you don't have a lot of practice with it.
Yeah. And I agree with all of that, but you actually also kind of left out two things that I think are big considerations. One is focus, which you kind of mentioned, but either you manual focus, in which case you're adjusting the focus, or you're fixed, you fix it to, zone focus kind of style and do that, which can work.
And then you don't touch it while you're shooting.
Yeah. So you could do that. Otherwise, you need a camera with really good autofocus. Yep. And even the Fujis that we use, I feel like a lot of times the autofocus is not really good for that. Maybe a Sony would be good.
Using like the finger, most cameras you can like plug your gimbal into the USB-C port and like use the little ring on the DJI or whatever gimbal you have to adjust the focus. Mm-hmm. And that sucks. I know that like it's broken on the Fuji, and that's why that one sucks. But also it's like
particularly bad on the Fuji.
It's just a totally different means of focusing. That if you're used to like lens focusing, you're not used to using a little like scroll wheel. Yeah, that can be kind of hard to do.
And it there's some lag to it, and so it's not. You don't get good feedback quickly on it, which is a problem. Yep. So that's one annoyance. But the other big one with a gimbal is balancing it. Yeah. And any gimbal you get is only going to be able to support up to a certain weight. And so, if you have a full frame camera, you need a pretty beefy gimbal to be able to handle it. But then you've got to balance the gimbal, which can be really frustrating at first. I've gotten pretty fast at it now, but a new person using one, that can be a real frustration. And if you have a lens that that physically moves in and out as you zoom it, you basically have to pick what zoom level you want before you balance it, because that's going to throw the balance way off. And so it feels like there's a lot of there's a lot of barriers to overcome to actually use a gimbal. You've got to balance it. You've got to learn how to use it. You've got to figure out a focusing solution. It's not the same as just picking up your camera and pressing record. And I think a lot of times people don't think about that stuff when they get a gimbal, and it ends up being something they never use because it's exhausting to think about.
It's hard. Gimbals are hard, and there's a lot of overhead to it. But if you need a moving shot, you're gonna like have them walking through a room for like real estate stuff, or you need a tracking shot for your like short film, or you're shooting some B-roll and you just need like a moving shot. Like it's going to be the easiest way to get still footage.
It's absolutely fantastic for certain types of shots. It's kind of the only way to get certain types of shots.
Especially if you're on a one wheel.
and I will say,
could replace a cart.
For us shooting events, I think it's been a really good buy. I feel like I've gotten my money out of it. We've gotten some really good shots that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. That's why I keep mentioning the Ronin 4D, because I think you can get some really cool stuff with them. And so it's not to say like never buy a gimbal, but it's not the magic bullet that you might think it is.
Yeah, I would, after having like shot with gimbals and shot with steadicams, I prefer the handheld look of just like handheld footage versus gimbal footage for non-moving imagery. I just prefer it. And I would rather shoot handheld over shooting with a gimbal. Like 90% of the time. Agreed. I only want to shoot with a gimbal when it is the solution for the shot I'm trying to get. Yeah. And I can't do it with Steadicam.
That's a pretty good lead in. You want to talk about that?
Okay, yeah. So Steadicams are really fun. I mostly like them for the same reason that I like film cameras, and I like side-by-side pits instead of like a Traeger pellet smoker. And that's because I like doing things the hard way, Daniel. Because it's better. It's just better.
I don't know if I agree, but tell me more.
So whenever we shot that TV show, which was like 2 years ago at this point, they were like, "Hey, Lucas, you know how to run a Steadicam?" And I'm like, Not really. I have one that I bought for $50 on Amazon that I've used like 3 times.
And he was like, "You're hired.
You're the man." Okay. And like, that was like a crash course in learning how to Steadicam. And Steadicamming is pretty stinking hard. I had like the vest and everything, with like the vest and the arm, and we didn't have all the right things. He did not have the right Steadicam for that. He was like, "Here's my GlideCam 3000 or whatever."
Well, yeah, because the problem was we had a heavy weight on the top, and you need to be able to counterbalance that with a weight on the bottom.
Do I need to like cover what a Steadicam is for like 2 seconds?
I think so.
I'm just gonna do it. Okay, so it's like you have a mechanical gimbal, which is just like a ring with bearings and stuff in it that attaches to a handle. So handle goes up, makes a right turn, goes to a gimbal, and then through that gimbal is just a pole. And on both sides of the pole, you have to be perfectly balanced. And if they're perfectly balanced, you can move that handle around. Don't touch the pole at all. Just hold it by the handle. Don't touch the pole. And you can move that around all you want, and it's going to look stable. And it's not going to move. It's going to be stable. And so the idea is that on the pole, you put the camera on the top and you put weights on the bottom, and you balance it so it's perfectly balanced. And then you turn it by like slowly like tapping the pole to turn it, like tap, 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 and you can turn it. Tap, 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 tap. You can turn it the other way. And then you have to hold the whole weight with one hand and then tap, 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 tap with the other hand.
Yep.
And usually you're tapping with your right hand, holding with your left hand, and you hate yourself.
And when you say holding, that's what the vest helps with, because the vest has like this hydraulic or spring-loaded or something arm.
Yeah, like a spring-loaded arm.
It kind of helps you. It helps hold that weight and distribute it across like the rest of your body.
Because like we shot with S1Hs or whatever for that shoot, but it was like S1H plus the focus pole, because we were doing wireless focus poles, plus the Teradek, plus the monitor.
Yeah.
And then on the bottom,
monitor was a Ninja 5.
Yeah, and then I had to strap as many V-mount batteries as necessary to the bottom to counterweight it.
It ended up being pretty heavy.
It was like 25 pounds.
Yep.
And so I'm like holding this with my left arm, just like, God help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Steadicams. It's cool because you can get that like movie whatever look. And the people that run Steadicams like legit for like shows and movies, those things weigh like 40 or 50 pounds, and they're incredible.
Well,
and they're like custom, bespoke, like built, perfectly balanced. I don't know how they do it.
It seems like the advantage to it is that you get more natural motion because it has inertia to it, and it doesn't like suddenly change direction. It follows the laws of physics in a way that a motorized gimbal doesn't.
Exactly, and they look smooth and they look really good, and they don't have batteries. And except for like how much weight and how long you can hold it. And so I like Steadicams a lot. I think that gimbals have a much lower bar of entry.
Yeah, Steadicam to me feels way more niche and more like you use this if you're filming rather than like if you're making a movie rather than shooting an event, something like that. I
bought a GlideCam like G5000 or whatever that's called for like $50.
Yeah, you found a really good
I found a really good.
You were so excited.
Have yet to use it. It's been like a year.
But you have it. You know in your heart that you have it.
Yep, I have it. So help me. When that time comes, I'm going to be ready. What I have done with my Steadicam that I like, I haven't done this too much, but what I have done in the past is you use it for Steadicamming, and then you just hold the pole and then hold your right hand on the camera or whatever, or however you want to hold it, and then just like use it like a heavy weight, like a heavy camera rig or whatever.
Because that does help. Like that's one of the reasons we like rigging cameras is it gives you a little more weight, which makes it easier to not like shake when you're holding it.
Yeah, if you have a non-stabilized camera and it weighs 20 pounds, then it's not going to shake. You're not going to have jitter. You're going to have like natural looking motion. And so it's like if you rig it out heavy enough, you can just turn off that IBIS and it'll be fine. And so I would do that and get like I could have a natural hand motion that I could drop into Steadicam, but then also it's like a pull. And so you can kind of like get more reach if you're trying to get some fancy overhead shots or whatever.
Like a monopod.
A little bit like that. So I've kind of gotten a little weird with Steadicams in the past. But
so do you think that like should other people buy Steadicams?
Only if you're a masochist. Yeah. Or you have a need for stabilization that is heavy.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the big thing is if you need to stabilize more than like 10 pounds, the Steadicam is probably a better choice.
Yeah. Even if it's like, oh, this is my first movie and I want to have that Hollywood look or whatever, and so I'm going to get a Steadicam. If you can balance it on a gimbal, just do the gimbal.
Kind of agree.
Anyway, so I got a few other things on here. Kind of probably cruise through them. There's like every version of sliders.
Yeah, what do you think about sliders?
I hate them. I think that you can get some really cool stuff with sliders. I think that Edelchrome Rhino head thing or whatever it's called.
Those are two different companies, but yes.
Well, you know what I'm talking about, like the head thing that's like pan tilted, whatever.
Yeah, you can give Edelkrone like $5,000 and get a really cool like motorized camera thing that can move in every direction and do all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to get like really cool, repeatable like B-roll shots, I mean, sliders are pretty good for that.
Stuff like that is so appealing to me. Like I love the idea of I'm going to program this move and it's going to be perfectly choreographed and get this awesome shot. But in practice, it's kind of like the gimbal thing where it sounds really cool, but there's so much setup involved.
For me, the most useful thing for sliders is putting them on an infinite bounce. And then if you're going to shoot like an interview or do like a live setup or something, or even like talking head YouTube stuff, just like put a camera on a slider and just let it bounce. And then you can like switch to it for B cam and get a little bit of motion.
Yeah.
And I think that's nice.
Do you wish we did that in our interview shoots?
Yeah, I do. I think it would be handy.
It'd be pretty cool.
But like not enough to really go out and buy another slider.
Yeah. Well, and the other problem is, think about how you're going to mount that thing because
it's just another thing to set up.
Well, you probably put it on a tripod, but you need a pretty beefy tripod for it because you need the tripod to be able to handle it when the slider's at its extreme.
I think we do it, but it goes in and out instead of side to side.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, like that slow punch, but like it's on a dolly.
I mean, don't tempt me with a good time.
If it was long enough and you like set it to autofocus, you could get some dolly zoom effect.
That'd be.
No, it'd have to zoom. It would not focus unless it had was a really not parfocal lens.
Yeah, you could do a punch in and resolve.
If you use the 80 millimeter macro, that one is it basically zooms when you focus. That would be perfect.
If we start doing interview shoots where we're putting the 80 millimeter macro on a camera and using a motorized slider, that's when I'm going to be wondering, what are we really doing with ourselves here?
We're achieving our highest potential, obviously, Daniel. Anyway, I think the slide pod is really cool. I want a slide pod. I don't have a use for it.
Yeah, that's basically a monopod that's motorized.
Yep. I feel like you can do all kinds of weird stuff with that.
You
can like do most slider moves with a slide pod, but you get a little more versatility out of it.
Yeah. Little too expensive to buy on a lark though.
Yeah, probably true. I put easy rigs on here.
Man, people that don't use cameras bring that up to me so often. They're like, what if we just got that thing? Like I see people using that thing where they're wearing the vest and they have the big pole over their head and the camera hangs from it, and like that seems easy. Why don't we just do that? It's like because I don't want to look like a scorpion when I'm at this event.
I feel like there are legit uses for an easy rig. I've never used one. I don't imagine getting in a situation where I'm going to need an easy rig, but maybe. I mean, who knows?
I think it's kind of like the Steadicam thing where the answer is if you need a more stable camera, but it's too heavy for you to just hold up.
Once your camera gets over 25 pounds, it's like maybe start thinking about an easy rig.
But, those things are like $1,000. So it's just, it feels like it's kind of in a different category than the rest of these things. Your average person is not going to be looking to buy one of those.
What about one of those car mounts?
Oh, like the suction cups?
No, I was thinking about one of the ones that's like a moving crane that's motorized. You like strap to the top of your car.
Yeah, why don't you get one of those? That'd be pretty cool.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. Pass. Suction cups, though, they make like those ones that are pretty intense where they like suction cup a GH5 into the inside of a car.
Well, they make ones that you can put on the outside of a car, and they look heavy duty enough that it's like I think I'd probably trust it. I don't know. I mean, I could, that's how like, shows like Top Gear filmed cars, and it seems reasonable.
I think that I could see myself buying some heavy duty camera suction cups. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
I didn't even put magic arms on here, Daniel. That's probably gonna be my top favorite. It's just magic arms.
The little clamp things.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that your favorite?
They are so handy. I magic arm with all kinds of things that I shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, like cameras.
Mm-hmm. It's just real sketchy. Like maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Oh well.
We may need to talk about general rigging things at some point because I feel like there are a lot of things in the category of magic arms that we could discuss. I don't
know if either of us are enough of rigging enthusiasts.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a whole basket of random stuff. But, but I am curious. Like, out of all these things, are there any like MVPs that stick out to you? Like, what? I mean, I'm not going to say like what would your minimal setup be, because we know it depends on what you shoot. But for you, with the things that you shoot, what do you enjoy? Like, what are the biggest hits or misses for you?
I feel like tripods are the standard. That's the first thing you probably should invest in with any sort of rigging solution. You can get by with a lot of stuff with a tripod as far as like movements or static shots or that sort of thing. And it's like, man, before you invest kind of too far down the road, having a good tripod is kind of square one. And I feel like it's easy to skip past it because it's just uber boring.
Yeah. And I would say fluid for doing video, fluid head has been a really big improvement. And I used to do YouTube videos where I needed to do B-roll of products. And I thought about buying like a motorized slider, getting one of the Edelkrone motorized pan tilt things or something. Ultimately, I just got a fluid head and just did it all with the fluid head tripod.
Yep.
Looked really good. You can get a lot of cool shots that way. And it's just sometimes simpler is better.
Yeah, it's just you can get a lot of the stuff or get by with a lot of things with just a decent tripod, fluid head. So I feel like that's maybe the MVP as far as like ways to rig your camera. Otherwise, I mean, it's just all of these things are as needed, right? It's not like one is better than the other. They're all better than each other for different, very specific applications.
Yeah.
And I think that like in general, my favorite is a rigged out camera that weighs, 10 pounds and I can hold it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably really the best choice for most people. I was going to say for me, I think a slider is one of the biggest misses where I want to like sliders, but ultimately like it just seems like the burden of using it kind of outweighs the benefits.
I mean, you used to own a slider.
I did. And currently I own a non-motorized slider, which is an even less useful thing somehow.
What do you even do with a non-motorized slider?
You can use it if you want to get B-roll, right? Like, so just like I was saying, I use fluid head tripod, to get B-roll. You can do that with a non-motorized slider, but
it feels so useless.
It just doesn't seem worth it.
No.
And so that's probably the biggest miss. And then I feel like, you said tripod. I think I agree with that. But I mean, the gimbal honestly is a pretty useful thing. But I want to be careful saying that because, like I was saying earlier, I don't think it's the magic bullet for every scenario. But that said, I'm really glad I have the one I have. We use it every time we shoot events. And it's kind of one of those tools where there's not really anything else that can do what it does. So it's a tool I like having in the toolbox.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I don't know, Daniel. Did we miss anything? Did we go deep enough? I don't know if we went
I feel like we could go deeper, but okay. We went pretty deep.
All right. We'll just set aside a whole nother 30 minutes on magic arms.
Yeah. So, I think we could talk for 30 minutes on magic arms.
And then we'll do another 30 on scrim paper. Is it called paper? Scrim board.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing, like dealing with light and reflectors and all that. I don't know. There's a lot we could talk about.
Light rigging. No.
We'll have to workshop that name a little bit.
Sure.
That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter @CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.